Oh, yes, yes. I like when that little voice comes to me and says recording in progress. It's becoming my staple. David, just so you know, I say that on almost every podcast when it starts. I always reference the little voice when it says recording in progress, because that's the meaning of now we're going into the good stuff.
See,
Yeah.
you are such an achiever, man. I love it. You're an accomplisher. And that's what's really cool. I'm a man of faith. I grew up, my dad was a pastor. I wasn't trained to be an entrepreneur, but my dad was a pastor. And he would say, when God created the heavens and the earth, and then he created man and put him in a garden, he created him to create. Like, he created him to produce and not simply consume.
That's right.
He created him to be a fountain and not a drain. And so a guy like you, I remember running into you the very first time, and you're asking me all these questions. And I look over at my brother and I was like, this dude's straight up a producer, man. I mean, you're like a creator, a producer, even to the fact that you love hearing the word, this meeting is being recorded. It's like, progress.
Yeah, man.
I love progress.
That's right. And taking it back to that point, man, I think that there's always a level of, I'll use the word, I think I'm going to make this one up, epicness to, a new encounter. And it just a rewind back to Bradenton back in May of 2021, where we were getting together for that partner summit. You just know when you come together with somebody. And by the way, I was like the guy that, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you this. You got to check this out. I forced myself to be there. I had a couple of mentors that brought me to the table, but they weren't even going to invite me. So
really?
one of my guys was like, hey, you need to tell Matt, Money Maj, that you want to be there, that you'll pay your own way. And that, if at the minimum you can get just FaceTime and say hello and shake a hand to get your opportunity. And so I just kept pushing it. And, right up before the event, they were like, yeah, we got an extra spot. Come on down. We'd love to have you. And dude,
I love it.
That's how that kickstarted. But anyway, back to the in the room thing. When I met you, you just know when somebody starts speaking and you're just magnetically attracted to them. Dude, that's how it was with you and your brother. And I think it was impossible not to let that connection be developed and continue to be what it is. I'm so glad we're here today, and you're gonna change a lot of lives. You already are on this podcast, people that might not know you. But at the end of the day, I'd really like for you to open up, sort of tell your little story. And
sure.
Little is an understatement, because it's gigantic. This boy is big, loud, and proud. Has accomplished what most people will never see in a lifetime. But got my man David Benham here, by the way, if you haven't seen his name on the Zoom recording here. But nonetheless, man, go ahead. Tell us where you come from, man, your background, your story, and then I'm gonna have some fun with it after that.
Absolutely.
We'll open up some doors we can walk through.
I know you've got an agenda, but I do want to say this. Do not let me forget to go back to talk about your superhero journey. So that's something very important, because you just hit on something. When you magnetize with somebody and when you feel that, I'm going to walk you through hopefully a little coaching thing that's going to help your listeners as well as it's helped me, and hopefully it'll help you as well. Kind of know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but Jason and I've got an identical twin brother. I'm 2 minutes older. That's why when you hear me say we, Jason and I, my brother, we're identical twins. We live 5 doors down from each other in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've got 5 kids. He has 4. We're both 46 now. We've never been apart, with the exception of the time we spent in pro baseball. So we're very close. We started all of our businesses together. We grew up in Dallas, Texas. Our dad was a pastor, and he just taught us, that you want to not just read the Bible, but you want to apply it to every area of life. So I'll get to where that applies in business here shortly, but we ended up signing baseball scholarships to play at Liberty, and that's something that connected us with you.
That's right.
You're a baseball guy
man.
too.
That's right.
I'm sure you were better than us. You probably look better in your uniform than we did. But here we went to Liberty, and then after we graduated in '98, I got drafted by the Red Sox. Jason was drafted by the Orioles, and we went and played minor league baseball for several seasons. And I ended up getting involved with a major league trade over to the St. Louis Cardinals. So that was great, going to the major league spring training and having my bats made, Louisville Sluggers with my name on it. It was really exciting. I mean, I felt like, wow, I've arrived, only to find out that when you're married and you have your second kid and you get sent from the big leagues down to the minor leagues, life is tough. But here's what's interesting, and I think this is kind of what parallels with you, Manny, is while I was in the minor leagues, I chose to move forward and not go backwards. So I not only devoured some scripture, but I also read The Millionaire Next Door, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I devoured content like the cash flow quadrant. I mean, richest man in Babylon, you name it. I'm like, I want to move forward. I don't want to just sit here like a lot of the dudes around me and play video games until 2 o'clock when you catch that bus, head to the field, and you're at the field till 11, and then they go party and drink, and they're up till 3 or 4, then they sleep till noon and play video games again. And I just saw that lifestyle and I said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I love how John Maxwell said that if you want to change your life and change your destiny, then you need to envision walking out of your house and there's a big oak tree in front of your house and you have an axe, and you take that axe and you hit that oak tree 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then you set the axe down and you go on about your day. He said, now that tree will not come down tomorrow, and it's probably won't even come down next year. But if you don't stop hitting that tree 3 times every single day consistently, what will eventually happen? That oak tree is going to come down. That's right. And you're going to use that wood for all kinds of good stuff. So I knew in the minor leagues, I'm going to hit that tree 3 times, right? I am going to, number 1, I'm going to read my Bible. Number 2, I'm going to work out. Number 3, I'm going to devour good books. Number 4, I am going to seek the counsel and wisdom from people that are further down the road than me where I want to go. So I would reach out to entrepreneurs. I would reach out to business leaders. Now, remember, I went from high school to college, from college to the minor leagues, and from the minor leagues, like while I'm in the minor leagues, I had no like gap where, wow, I want to be in business one day. I always thought I was just going to be a Hall of Fame baseball player. But I learned that when you have a dream and a desire, you have to die to it in your heart while you pursue it with your hands and feet. Right? Dreams are good, Manny. They motivate us. But if we fall in love with the destiny of the dream, like I have to accomplish this or my life is worth nothing or I'm less than, right? And when you don't accomplish the dream, then you really have an identity crisis on your hands. Well, Manny, I'm here to tell you, I never accomplished the dream of being a Hall of Fame Major League Baseball player. I never accomplished it. But what I learned was that it's in the process of pursuing the dream that is the victory, right? That is ultimately the victory, because when that door closed on my life, I didn't have an identity crisis. I went right into the marketplace. I was like, I'm going to get my real estate license. This didn't work, but you know what? Everything I've done to this point, all the discipline, all of the hard work, all of the relationships that I've made in the past as a baseball player, I'm going to leverage that for this next season of life. So I didn't have an identity crisis, which was great. And so Jason and I ended up getting our real estate licenses. We moved our families to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. That's when we started our first company. And that first company, we said, we want to establish it based on principles and values that we found in scripture. And we don't want to deviate from that. And 7 years later, we had 100 offices, 35 states. We were topping Inc. magazine's charts, Ernst & Young. Gosh, Wall Street Journal did a big article on us. I mean, we were hitting all these big charts and magazines. And I thought, wow, it feels great. But I made all that income so that I could have impact. I didn't want to just make a bunch of income and just keep making more income. I would have fallen into the John D. Rockefeller syndrome when he was asked, how much is enough? Just $1 more.
Just $1 more. Yeah.
Yeah. So we quantified very quickly how much was enough. Jason and I knew, okay, here's what I want to live on. And here's what I want to put away for my family. And here's what I want to invest. And anything outside of that, I want to use for impact. I want to support organizations and ministries that I feel are in parallel with my desires to change this country and this world. So anyway, I'll fast forward a little bit. At the height of our company, that's when a production company came to us and said, you guys want to be on reality TV? And we were like, no, yes. Are you kidding me? Heck yeah, I'll take a reality show. So they took a little clip of my brother and I and our company and some of the stuff that we did in real estate and around the community. And they took it to LA, and 5 networks wanted us. TLC made us our first offer. So now all of a sudden we're negotiating 2013 with TLC about a show they wanted to call Twinning. Like Jason and I going in and maybe resurrecting a company, or maybe renovating a house, or maybe going in and helping a marriage, or maybe helping with the kids. Because at this point, we, each of us had been married, and still by God's amazing grace, happily married with a lot of kids. And, they thought, man, this would kind of work. So as we're negotiating with them, that's when HGTV came to us. They had just signed Chip and Joanna Gaines to the show Fixer Upper. They hadn't even piloted the show yet. So they said, guys, we've got the Gaines, and now we want to get your family. So we're going to take the Gaines and the Benhams, and we want to raise you guys to the top of the network. We'll call their show Fixer Upper. We'll call your show Flip It Forward. And this is going to be great. We're going to put a lot of money into it. And they said, as a matter of fact, we're not even going to do a pilot for you guys. We're going to skip the pilot. We're going to go straight to series in the fall of 2014. So we're like, wow, this is great. What kind of money are you going to pay us? And so they offered us this big contract. It was a multi-year, multi-episode deal, a lot of money. And so we signed with HGTV. But before we signed, we said, do you know who we are? I mean, have you ever paid attention to our viewpoints when it comes to the hot button, supposedly political issues, even though a lot of the social issues truly aren't political, Manny? Like marriage is not really a political thing. It's been around since the beginning of time.
Right.
It's not political, it's moral.
Mm-hmm.
And several other issues, life and all these other things. And so they said, oh yeah, we know who you are. We know you guys are conservative. We know you're Christians, and we believe that your show would rate very highly on our network. So we thought, okay, great, let's do it. So now we're 5 weeks into a 10-week film shoot. They had just piloted Fixer Upper. It got great ratings. Now all of a sudden they're releasing the first few episodes of Fixer Upper. While they're doing that, our commercials on Flip It Forward are running. And that's when the activist groups, which is cancel culture before it became a hashtag, cancel culture, started targeting HGTV. I remember the general manager called me and Jason, and she's like, I can't believe these activist groups. They're like coming after us, saying you guys are haters and all this other stuff. And the HG had never received this type of pressure before, but now we had received this type of pressure. Like when we started topping the charts, Inc. magazine and Wall Street Journal, that's when all of a sudden all these groups come in, all of the Huffington Post and Right Wing Watch and Slate magazine, and they're like, these people hate women, they hate gays. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And so anyway, they just create this narrative in HGTV, but it was kind of fun because they said, hey, listen, don't you worry about it. Your show's going to be huge. We're going to put all this marketing dollars into it. We're taking you guys to Home Depot, and we're doing, we're going to land these big endorsement deals for you. So we were like, okay, great. But then, bro, I'm telling you, behind closed doors, this is, like I said, before cancel culture became a thing, these groups would not stop. GLAAD, Glisten, Right Wing Watch, they was just pounding HGTV behind closed doors. And they were like, if you give these boys a show, we'll go after your advertisers. I mean, it's just mafia tactics. It's the new thought mafia. If you don't think like them, act like them, believe like them, talk like them, then you are a bigot, a hater, intolerant. You're not inclusive or diverse. When I say, no, we're far more inclusive than you are.
Right.
Far more diverse than you are. And so HG called us and said, guys, they're not going to leave us alone. And we're really actually afraid that by releasing your show, it'll put our network in the crosshairs of this attack. And so we're going to fire you guys. We have to let you go. And they literally were crying, and we felt really bad for them. We never said anything bad about HG ever. These are great people. But what we did recognize at that point in 2014 is there is an agenda to silence the beliefs of those who are not, quote, politically correct when it comes to us in an array of issues, whatever it may be. Saul Alinsky in his book, Rules for Radicals, said the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution.
Right.
The issue is the revolution, to take people's freedom of speech, your freedom of thought, your freedom of conscience. Like, I don't care if you want to be gay or not, that's your choice, right? But don't force me to now come alongside and have to believe exactly like that. Right. And why would, it's the same thing, even when we get into these race discussions, it's like, what are you talking about? You call me racist just because of the color of my skin? You don't even know who I am, right? Martin Luther King Jr. said in his famous speech, I dream of a day when we are judged by the content of our character and not by the color of our skin. How dare us throw that speech out and immediately judge a white man for the color of his skin? It's wrong. So anyway, not to mention the fact that, yes, we can work through a lot of these social issues. Like, we ain't got it right in this country, but thank God we have a system set up that can help us make it right.
Sure.
And so we don't just have people walking the streets murdering everybody, taking out our leaders, and establishing coups over the government like they do in other countries. We actually have order. So it's not perfect order, but it's the best you can get for this time. So anyway, Manny, I jump off my soapbox back into my story. So Jason and I ended up getting fired. We wrote a book about it called Whatever the Cost. And we said this, dying to your dreams and facing your fears while living powerfully. Like, you got to face, as you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a success, if you're going to grow, you have to face your fear. You can't run from it. That may be a relational conflict. That may be an addiction with drugs or alcohol. I mean, it may be something that's so deeply embedded in you. Maybe there was an abuse in your life that happened to you and you are deadly afraid of facing it. You know, we have to face these things. And when we do, we realize that God created us. He loves us. We can be forgiven. They can be forgiven. We can have redemption. There can be restoration and reconciliation. It's not going to be perfect. It'll never be perfect until the Lord returns. But when we face our fears, we also at the same time have to die to our dreams. Like, I had this dream marriage and that guy was a bum. He was cheating on me. He left me, right? We have to die to our dreams at times. I had dreams of all kinds of things. And you may have dreamed that you were going to have a brother and a sister and you never did, or your best friend that was closer than a brother or a sister walked out on you and betrayed you. Listen, we have to die to those dreams and say, I want to accomplish exactly what God wants me to accomplish. I am going to face my fears. And when you do, you can live powerfully. That book, Manny, became a bestseller. That kind of thrust my brother and I into the spotlight, where now the next thing you know, we were consistently on CNN and Fox News. Gosh, Bill Maher on HBO. It was hysterical. I mean, TMZ had us on. TMZ's like, man, we got all these Hollywood people that don't believe like you, but we really like the way you guys talk.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, the reason why is because we're speaking sense. Like, I'm not forcing my Christian faith down someone's throat. I'm saying be free to believe what you want. But one thing is important, that we have shared values in this country, and that's what held us together. Like, we have shared values that we want to progress. We want to grow as a country. Yeah. And the way you grow as a country is not by burning down all your buildings and throwing chairs and rocks through Starbucks windows demanding reparation. That ain't how you grow. We grow by talking and working together. And hopefully those of us entrepreneurs that have been blessed will give back. My brother and I partnered with the Nehemiah Project, a very diverse group led by African Americans that now have taken my brother and I into conversations we never thought we were able to have, because we were getting boxed out because we were wealthy white dudes. Now all of a sudden, Jason and I've got literally hundreds of African American entrepreneurs that are listening to us, and we're listening to them, and we're actually doing good things for our community, right? That's the way you grow. So as a result of all of that, Jason and I started an initiative called Expert Ownership, where we take digital courses. Jason and I built digital courses on how to succeed in business. We wrote a book on how to succeed in business. We built a 12-step process on how you go from wannapreneur to solopreneur to entrepreneur, but ultimately to see-yapreneur, where you transcend the system. There ain't no gravity of money tying you down anymore. You don't have to concern yourself with income. All you have to do is think about impact. Like, even on this podcast, I've probably made more money in the last 20 minutes than, I made in the first 2 years of my life, in business. But I don't say that as a bragging thing. I can't stand the dudes that sit there and promote themselves in front of their helicopter. I say that because the people listening to this, you can accomplish the same things. You can do it. You just got to line up with, what is your purpose? What are you passionate about? Where are your proficiencies, and where can you make profit? You get those four lined up, and I'm telling you, nothing's going to stop you. You will absolutely grow.
Yeah, man. There's so much that I can say. One, I went through your course, Expert Ownership, and it's phenomenal. But along the same thread of everything that you just said, I know how hard it is to condense, 46 years of life into, a 10-minute segue on a podcast to share it. but I think there's a lot to that. And I'm trying to figure out which direction I want to go with it right now, but I really want to sit and put myself in the shoes of where people are at today in terms of, where they're stuck, where they're held up with things. And what I would like to do is take you back, X amount of years to the point where most people are maybe at that transition point or that breakthrough point where, they've lost hope, right? They don't know what their purpose is. They're unsure what to do next, and sort of how you approach that. Let's just say even moving away from baseball and then going into real estate. What was it like for you in the trenches when you were going through this? How did you communicate to yourself? What resources outside of mentors did you do? Like, what was the actual, tactical process that drove you, that allowed you to keep marching forward, that eventually allowed you to become the CEOpreneur, right? That's a glory land that most people are desiring, but unfortunately they just don't get there for a myriad of reasons. So I know you can probably just open up and share on that, because I want people to be able to have something to take with them today, now, turn a corner and then redirect and keep going.
Let me take you to, I was in my 4th year, St. Louis Cardinals, had just gotten out of Major League spring training. I was sent to AA to play in New Haven, Connecticut. I was married, had one boy, a year and a half old. We were pregnant with our second. I wasn't making a lot of money. By the end of that season, I knew I need to shift, but I didn't make a ton of money. And so I knew I needed a job. Now, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a successful business owner, but I didn't know where to go or really what to do. I knew, however, I need to produce for my family, right? So I ended up making a couple of phone calls, and believe it or not, I was given a job in Charlotte, North Carolina, or I was given a job offer in Charlotte, North Carolina, because I knew I wanted to go there. It's like, I knew I want to go there, so I need a job there. I didn't really have much direction outside that. The only job that opened up was a janitor at a local high school. Now, let me just stop for a second. For a 26-year-old dude that's known nothing but baseball and magazines and, conference player of the year, all that kind of stuff, becoming a janitor was not something I anticipated I would do. So I called my agent and I said, I really want to get out of baseball. I'm probably going to just take a job in Charlotte. And he said, well, before you do that, let me make a phone call. So he called me back a couple hours later and said, I've got an offer from the Rockies. And he goes, you got a chance to make the big league team. So at that, I thought, man, maybe I could do this, but maybe not. It just didn't feel right. It didn't connect. And here's what I teach young entrepreneurs. What makes the hair on your arm stand up? Pay attention to your passions.
Ooh, that's good.
Pay attention to your energy level. If you start thinking about you got to put your phone away, no notifications, and you got to get quiet. Okay? You got to get quiet and get outside if you can. And just let God's nature be nature, and it'll really calm you. And it creates a rhythm inside your body. It's very important. And then you just got to listen and pay attention to what drains you. Walk out the step. Okay, for the next 6 months, if I sign with the Rockies, blah, blah, blah. And man, I started feeling a drain. And then I thought, okay, what is it like? Okay, I'm a janitor. And then I started thinking, well, I don't really, that ain't making the hair on my arm stand up. However, being at home with my wife, being at home and raising my son and taking him to the park at lunch, next thing you know, the hair on my arm starts standing up. And that's when I knew I'm going to walk away from baseball and become a janitor. Now, story's not over. While I was a janitor, I'm pushing the broom while these young high school punk boys are walking past me. They have no idea they would have been waiting in line for an autograph 6 months earlier. And yet they're walking past me, not even making eye contact, as if I don't exist. I'm the dude with the keychain on the side of my pocket. I used to make fun of that guy in high school. Now I'm him, right? So I went from the top to the bottom quick. And I had an identity crisis. And I told you earlier, I didn't have an identity crisis. Well, I didn't ultimately have an identity crisis that sent me spinning, but for a moment I had an identity crisis. And here I was holding onto a broomstick when they had this big sports award ceremony at the school. and the gym was all decked out. People are wearing tuxedos and stuff, and they're announcing the athlete of the year. And as this young man's walking up on stage, I'm standing in the back with 2 trash bags hanging out my back pocket, holding a broomstick. And I'm like, okay, I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I remember being in that kid's shoes with nothing but the stars and the moon ahead of me. And now here I am in the trench. And it was at that moment that the Lord impressed on my heart, do you love me for who I am, or do you just love me for my blessings? And I remembered a quote that my dad told me when I was a kid. He said, if you love God for what he gives you, you'll hate him for what he takes from you. And so now I'm like having this identity crisis. And I remember that, David, you are a human being, not a human doing. What you do does not define you, who you are. And if you are a good man, if you are a hard worker, right? These are things you want to be, right? If that's truly who you are, then simply be faithful in the little things. So I now know, looking back, I wrote a chapter in one of our books called The Sweet Spot. We all want to be in our sweet spot for life, which is where your purpose, your passion, what excites you, your proficiency, what you're good at, and profit, what you can make money at, all intersect. And where all 4 of those intersect, boom, that's your sweet spot. Now, we don't always get to that sweet spot, especially early in life, especially when you're stuck. So I said, en route to your sweet spot, make your current spot sweet. See, that's the key. I chose at that moment, Manny, I look back now, this was the pivotal decision I made in my life to become a successful entrepreneur. I chose at that moment to become the best janitor I could possibly be.
Wow.
To sweep those floors, to plunge those toilets, to have a good attitude, to be on time. And the promise in the Bible, and I was holding on to this promise, Jesus says, his own words, if you are faithful in little things, I will make you faithful in big things. So that is so simple and practical right now, that your listeners, wherever you are, it may not be your sweet spot. I get it. It may be tough. I get it. I've been there. I mean, it may be like you feel like you have no hope. Well, you know where the hope is? The hope is that when you are faithful right where you are, as hard as it may be, God's promise, you will be faithful in bigger things. Now, while I was there as a janitor, I decided at that time, while I was faithful in the little thing, I started this little side hustle. I went and got a real estate license, right? I paid it, and I started thinking, what would I like to do? What would I enjoy doing where I could actually make some profit? And what am I actually pretty good at? I knew I was good with people. So that real estate fit that. That's proficiency. I knew I always had liked house renovations and stuff like that. So I was passionate about it. And I was also passionate about helping people. But I also knew I could make some profit at this bad boy if I do it right. There's all kinds of niches in real estate. So I chose to go that way. Now, it didn't ultimately line up with a purpose, but at that point, purpose is 4th on the list. Some people would disagree with that, but I'm like, you got to go after profit, proficiency and passion, right? You got to go there. And then purpose will follow, which I'm fulfilling my purpose now. And I wasn't then. But anyway, so that's why I decided to start this little side hustle. So I started growing this little side hustle while I was working faithfully as a janitor. And then what started happening is the side hustle eventually matched my salary, and I was able to walk away. See, that's the key. That's just a simple step. Be faithful in the little, get a loan, find out, and you got to write. You got to start writing journals. And it's not just about the books you read and the people you meet. It's about the things you write. And don't think about writing perfect, but you've got to get it out. That's what meditation truly is. Meditation is not just sitting there thinking. Meditation is actually producing the written word. Like, Manny, I love what you did. You handed me a copy of your book. I'm sitting there flipping through it, and I'm like, I love this kid. He's sitting here writing stuff down. Like, you're not waiting to get published by some big publisher. You straight up, I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna publish this. And I'm not saying anybody's got to publish their journal. Right. But what I am saying was, during that time as a janitor, I was writing, I was getting a loan, I was paying attention to my energy level, both good and negative. I started a little side hustle. I was faithful in the little things. And the next thing you know, it just began to grow.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it reminds me, some people would probably interpret that as being grateful along the way to some extent, faithful in the little things, and then, God will send you the bigger things. The sort of the challenges and the obstacles at that point where you're starting to segue into, you got your janitor's position, but then you're also doing your side hustle. What was thrown at you to try to throw you off course? What kind of beating were you taken to where you were just like so determined, and what did you fall back to? I understand family, you wanted to take care of them, be around your son. Fantastic. Was that it? Or was there other things that kept you moving forward? Because that path's not easy, right?
No.
From a principles and a value standpoint, fair, I understand you had that intact, but then here comes the avalanche of things that want to get in the way from you accomplishing your bigger goal and vision. So what does that system look like for you that you worked through in order to keep yourself moving forward on that track?
Yeah, I call it godly discontentment. Now, discontentment is not a good thing. You got to establish contentment first with who you are and who you were created to be, right? Be content with your eye color. Be content with your hair color. I get you want to do highlights, whatever, you want to dye your hair, whatever. I'm not talking about that, but I am saying be content with who you are. Like God, read Psalm 139. I've done this with many people and they generally cry. Once you get into the part where God knows you, he formed you, he created you, he loves you, he thinks about you. You have to be content with who you are, and you have to be content with what energizes you and what doesn't energize you, right? Just don't compare yourself on Instagram to this person that's got this or that person that's got that. Well, I could never do this because look at it, they're doing it. They're so much better than me. Don't. Comparison is a killer to contentment. So that contentment is important, but contentment with the status quo, mediocrity, contentment with that, you cannot be content. So that's why I call it godly discontentment. I had a godly discontentment with simply providing for my family. Now, number one, you have to provide for yourself. See, this is the path of maturity. So if you've got a really young listener right now, the first thing you want to ask yourself is someone else providing for me, or am I providing for myself? Because that's step one. You have to provide for yourself, right? In other words, you want to not be a burden to anyone, but it doesn't just stop there. Okay. You also don't want to be beholden to anyone. So not only do you not want to be a burden, but you don't want to be beholden to anyone, right? Like I rely on to develop my own skill set. I rely to further my own talents. I can't just sit back and try to just say, well, I've got it the easy way. I'm just going to rely on all these other relationships. No, man, you got to go out and do what Manny Vargas does. And you've got to push and meet people, look them in the eyes. How can I help you? And by helping someone, they will in turn end up helping you. So
let me jump in real quick. I got to stop you right there, because that part right there is where people, whether it's initiative or it's action, don't necessarily get out of the inertia, right? It's like you have to go do the thing. Most people know they have to go do the thing, David, right? They know that part, but there is a block. It is like, nope, that there is a big, gigantic cement wall there that somebody has to get through. And it's almost like without getting around it, over it, breaking through it, there's this extreme level of paralysis that's involved in somebody going to take those actions to open up this bigger, brighter future for themselves, right? So I just wanted to jump in right there to allow you to sort of maybe unpack that one a little bit too, where, what's the resource or the answer for that as you see it? Not necessarily it's always the right one, because that grip that most people are choked into sometimes to not be able to take action is very real. And I know that because I've experienced it, right?
Yeah. I say you ask 5 whys. You got to ask why. Okay. And the word so that it's super important. So to finish my path and then to go back to your one point here, not only should you, if your path of maturity and your path of success, You're not beholden, or you're not a burden to anyone. You're taking care of yourself. You're not beholden to anyone, and you can be a blessing to everyone, beginning with your family first. That's the path of maturity, but it doesn't stop there. Every single time you make a decision in business, or you are, let's just say you're working at McDonald's, okay? And you know you want more. You have to ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish? Get that picture in your mind, right? I mean, if I take a jigsaw puzzle, 1,000 pieces, and dump it out on the table, and I start trying to put the pieces together, and I don't look at the box, I'm gonna be pretty screwed up, right? But I've got to take the lid of that box and look at it so that I know what I'm putting together. All the pieces to your life will line up when you have a picture of, what do I want to accomplish? What is it that I want my life in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to look like? And you may not have a perfect picture, but you'll have enough picture to put some pieces together, right? And in order to, when you get that picture, you ask the 5 whys. I want to accomplish that why. Because this. Why? Because I want to do that. Why? And usually by your 5th why, you get down to the bottom. And the bottom of your ultimate purpose and desire, like really what you want to accomplish, you add the 2 words, so that. I want to blank. For me, I was a janitor. I want to start a real estate business. I asked myself all these whys. Why? I want to provide for my family. Why? Well, I that's what I'm called to do. I'm supposed to provide for my family, but I want to do more. Why? Because I see a lot of bad dudes in the marketplace that make all the money and do bad things with their money. Okay, so I want to make that money. Okay, why? Well, what are you going to do with it? Right? You got to ask yourself, you got to really get serious. So I nailed it down when I was a janitor. I was like, I want to start a real estate company that makes me passive income so that I never have to work for active income again, right? I knew that. So that I can spend the rest of my life helping the next generation accomplish the purpose for which God created them. So now I've written 6 books. I travel and I speak. I have a whole coaching course. I am accomplishing exactly what I set out to accomplish. So that was the motivation that got me through. That was the, oh my gosh, I've been doing real estate 2 years. I made 13 grand the first year. I made 19 grand the second year. I had my 3rd kid on the way. My brother and I moved our families into the same stinking house with pregnant wives and little ones in diapers. That is a suicide mission. But we knew, I am sick and tired of watching all the rich dudes spend all their money, and this next gen, they're in school, they're taught to take tests, but they don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to start a business. They're not filled with hope and destiny. They're just taught to be little wooden soldiers, like, take this test, get this answer right.
Yep.
Like, why are you learning algebra when you ain't gonna use algebra? Like, use algebra to develop your mind, right, but do it for the purpose of starting a company. Do it for the, like, learn how, like, practical, tangible, real life skills. So I knew Jason and I were gonna go into that space. And I'm gonna get, like, we created a 24 video course. Actually, it was a 15 video course called Expert Ownership, Mastering the Early Years, where Jason and I literally show, if you're from 16 to 24, I will take you through the exact 12 steps that you need, with 3 little workshops at the end, to become a successful entrepreneur, right? I knew that's where I want to go. But if I don't have enough passive income to offset my lack of active income, because I'm going to be focusing on all this, then I'm not going to have accomplished that. So it took us 12 years, and I finally got it. And once I did, I just flipped the switch. But we were dogged determined, because we knew why. And that is the key. You'll see Simon Sinek's book, Knowing Your Why, and a lot of other books. I mean, that really is, and I don't want to hijack their material, but they truly, if you know your why, and if you ask the 5 whys, and you develop your so that statement, you develop a picture of what you want with a so that statement. I'm telling you. So I'll finish with this before you get to your next question. You want a picture, a plan, and a partner. You want a picture of what you want to accomplish. You want to break that into a plan, walk it backwards. What do I need to accomplish? And you have to get some some advice and consulting and listen to podcasts like this and stuff to where you can really kind of develop the plan. And then a partner, not whether that means a business partner, I'm not saying that technically, but a partner, someone that can keep you accountable. You know, if you've got a dad or a mom that believes in you and can speak life into you, that's first amazing. But if you have a pastor or a coach or a friend or somebody that believes in you, they know what you're good at and what you're weak at. That's the kind of partner that you say, hey, once a month, I want to check in with you and I want you to hold me accountable to this plan, right?
Yeah.
That right there, you do that 12 times, that 12 touches, you know, once a month for a solid year. You know what that is, Manny? That's hitting the tree.
Yeah. I was just
I guarantee you'll push through it.
That's where my mind went with the axe. 3 times on the oak tree, right? With the plan, the picture.
That's right.
Plan, partner, picture, plan, partner. Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, I want you to go back to the superhero thing that you mentioned earlier, because I don't forget, but there's one other thing that I added in there that I want to add in there that you just said. It's do it for the purpose of, almost like a new single line that you said just through your conversation flow, that if somebody was to extract that out, maybe that can be your new method, ladies and gentlemen that are listening. So just write it down. Do it for the purpose of ... and then fill in the blank.
So think about this, Manny. Let me just give you an example. In the Bible, it talks about making our requests or our petitions to God. Now, we don't just get up there and like, hey, Santa Claus, hook me up with this and this and this. In scripture, and I've read it, I started at 18, I started reading through the whole Bible, so I'm 46 now. But there's a pattern in scripture. God wants to know the intentions of your heart. Like, he pays attention to the intentions of your heart. And if the intentions of your heart are aligned with the intentions of his heart, you have what you ask for. Now, I'm not talking about some prosperity message where I want a red Porsche and I want this and I want that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like meaningful things for your life. Now, I'll take a red Porsche, but I'm talking about something far more meaningful. When you pull up to a stop sign, especially out there in Vegas or in California, it's certain places here in Charlotte, there's a dude standing there with a sign, help needed,
right? Or
please help. Okay. You want to ultimately know, what do you need help for? Because, well, I need money. Okay. For what purpose? Well, I want to eat. Okay. For what purpose?
So that I don't die on the street.
Okay.
Right?
So that I don't die on the street, and keep it going. Well, and if I don't die on the street and I keep eating, hopefully I can, so that I can get healthy, so that I can work for myself, so that I'm not a burden to anyone, so that I'm no longer beholden to begging for money, so that I can start blessing other people just like I've been. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. If they're not walking through that mentality, they're going to be in perpetual slavery and perpetual begging. And it's the same, that's the lowest end of the totem pole right there. That's exactly what we get in our lives with our profession. Yeah. We will be in that's it. You have to walk it through and find out what your desires are, and then get to that point and then commit it to the Lord and keep that desire out ahead of you. Keep yourself accountable with that person that's going to keep you accountable. And I guarantee you will get successful. Yeah. That is the recipe for success.
I love it, man. I was just going to walk out of that. I know while you're talking about walking through it, taking the time to go through, but I was going to say, walk out of it, look at it and evaluate it and say, okay, you just have to take the time to go through the process of asking yourself and having that inner dialogue to be able to get clearly what it is that you ultimately want out of life. And these are the little things, going back to saying faithful in the little things. These are the little things that get overlooked because it's like, you're alpha, or you're just not paying attention to it, or it's like, it's not that important because it's so small. But no, it is that important. It is that important to be very clear on what your vision is, 1, 3, 5, 10 years, and defining it in a way where, like the methods are that you're sharing with us, are in action at every segment and every marker of the process, right? So you're essentially driving the performance, you're driving the process, and you're walking right into, a better life for yourself.
The key with that, Manny, the 3 axe swings, okay? Those are what we call anchor activities. So you've got your picture. When you make your plan, what are the three? Just do three. You could do 5, 10. I don't care, but I just say three. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
What are the three anchor activities on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, depending on exactly what that picture is? What are my anchor activities that will push me toward that picture, and make them anchors? So for me, starting that first company, Jason and I had to call 5 corporate clients a week. I had to call 5. That's an anchor. Boom, 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 boom.
By the way, dude,
boom,
you're in my
boom.
head, by the way, because you literally answered the question that I was ready to come up with. I was like, this is gonna be my next question. But you're like,
Yeah.
by the way, when I started my first company, you just dude,
Yeah.
get out of my head, man.
Yeah. Just I'm in your head. But that's your anchor, right? I also had another anchor for health, and I know you do as well. And so I knew that my anchor, especially with a young family, I had to maintain my health on my time, not on my children's time. So I was up early in the morning and I was at the gym sweating, and I knew a 30-minute sweat, whether it's lifting or jogging or running or whatever, I knew that's an anchor. I've got to hit that anchor, because if I'm going to have sustained energy to accomplish this big vision that we have, I've got to have. So I made that an anchor. Just these other things. And of course, as a man of faith, I've got anchors in the scripture and stuff, but specifically when it comes to the business, or when it comes to that picture, you've got to create your anchors. What are the 3 axe swings that you can take that will help you accomplish that picture? You may not know those axe swings. That's where you got to get advice. That's where you got to be like Manny. Hey man, can I just talk to you for 30 minutes? I noticed that you own this, or I noticed that you're on this billboard, or whatever. There is not a human alive that's successful that's not going to turn their ear to a young person or to somebody that's like, I need a breakthrough and I need to know my next steps, and I'm doing whatever it takes. And if they don't give you their ear, you need to rebuke them and say, man, you've been given too much and you're selfish with it.
Yeah.
So
Or
anyway,
just be relentless in your follow-up. It's like,
be relentless in the follow-up.
Coming back, asking for some more.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, by the way. That is one of the core things that I have done pretty much my entire entrepreneurial journey, has been put myself in front of people and ask and take their leadership, and it is paid off in spades, man. It is incredible. Like one of the core tenets of what I do, man. I mean that.
What's really cool about the way that you are relentless, because I mean you've been very consistent, not relentless with me, but you're consistent enough where I'm like, I'm going to respond. John Maxwell, I go back to Maxwell again. He's a friend of ours. We did a thing called Expert Ownership Live with Dr. Maxwell, and he came in and talked all about are you a player or a pretender? And it was just an honor to hear Dr. Maxwell talk, with my brother and I. It was really, really fun. But anyway, Maxwell says this. He says, and this is what I like about what you said. He said, you can see a fake. You can see when someone is just trying to get and take. And when you are pursuing somebody and you're pursuing them, they can tell if you're after manipulation or motivation. In other words, if they are coming after you seeking their own benefit, then they'll manipulate. But if they're coming after you seeking mutual benefit, then they'll motivate you. And you can see that. Like me being around you, you're a young guy, not where I am in life, but you're heading that direction. But you motivate me because there's mutual value. You're not just manipulating to suck the life out of me and take 45 minutes of my day, right?
Yeah.
Because I know by being on this podcast, I'm speaking to people that I wouldn't otherwise get a chance to speak to. So it's almost like a pass-through. You don't see yourself as a cul-de-sac. You see yourself as a conduit. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'll get on board with a guy like that because I'm motivated.
Yeah.
No, so I just want to encourage you with
I respect that, man, and thank you for the kind words. What I think when you said that, and just like a quick little thought about it too, in the big picture, it's like the quest is pure because it really comes down to the quicker that I get to where I want to be, the more that, like you said, we influence the rest of the world, the more the impact is had, right? Because and that's part of the process. And so how can we work together? And even though I am going in for new ask and hey, can you guide me with this? Hey, I got a question on this. I promise, because that's the path that I'm on, we're going to help even more people because of that. And you're going to be a part of that. right?
That's
Because
right.
that's my hair standing up, by the way. See, that's
I
that
love
part
it.
right
I
there we're
love
talking
it.
about, man. And so that's
Love it.
sort of the thought process for me when I go in and I ask people, but it's also, yeah, hey, how can I help them? What can I do for them? Hey, I'm here for you. Do you need me to run an errand for you? Like, I don't have a problem with that. I have some humility, man, like none at all. So, that being said, man, I know I don't want to keep you all day, man. I know, but before this stuff goes by so fast. It's like,
Hey, but I
it's
got to do my
too quick.
superhero thing, man.
I know you got to do a superhero, and I got one more question for you before that, about what's behind me. But that's about it, man. So I want to hear the superhero thing.
Okay, so we have a coaching component with a master coach. He's our expert ownership master coach, and I don't know if you've read Michael Gerber's E-Myth or E-Myth Revisited. He's a phenomenal. Gerber is a beast.
Yeah.
Well, Gerber, after he wrote the books, is just getting inundated with business owners, and I mean large Fortune 500 companies coming to him saying, "Hey, we really want help with our systems." So he tasked a man by the name of Eric Beck to build out and help direct his global training platform. Well, that man, Eric Beck, read our book, Expert Ownership. He read it through twice, called me and Jason and says, "I'm folding everything. I'm coming to work for you." So now Eric Beck is our master coach. By the way, I just wanted to say this to you. I want to give you a personal invitation, and everyone else. I don't have the splash page up yet, but we're doing a mastermind in Miami in March with Eric and my brother and I, and our marketing guy, Larry Hubatka, who he did marketing for the Olympics, for Nike. So we're doing mastermind for that. So
that
anyway,
dude is a whiz, by the way, folks. That dude is Larry.
I will get you. It's mid-March. It's a shame because our splash page won't be up until Tuesday. But anyway, I'll get that over to you and you can push it to your folks.
Love it.
So anyway, so Eric Beck, the first thing that he'll do if we do like a group coaching session is he says, "Now we want to establish your purpose. And in order to do this, what I want you to do is I want you to get quiet." So we get everybody dead quiet. I throw a little William Augusto on soaking music, in the background, no words.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You start feeling like you're in a movie.
Yeah. Amen.
And then he's like, "All right, now close your eyes. I want you to envision before money ever came into the scene, before like responsibility ever came into the scene. You're 10 years old, you're running around with your friends in the neighborhood, but now you're laying in your bed as a 10-year-old. Who's your heroes? Like who made the hair on your arm stand? Who was it that resonated with you?" It could be a movie character like Rocky. I was a Rocky guy. Yeah. I mean, it could be a school teacher. It could be a coach. It could be a parent. It could be a friend. It could be just anybody. Who was your hero where you're like, I look up to that person. I want to be like that person. And so now when you think, well, I'm walking you.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I'm walking you through it. I won't put you on the spot, but if you got somebody and you want to say it, go for it. But I remember the first time I was like, first time I ever saw Rocky Balboa. I remember my dad took me to the Walnut Twin movie theater. We were 6 years old, and Clubber Lang, Mr. T, had beat the crap out of him. And I was so scared as a kid. Me and Jason are crying in the movie theater. We were terrified. We wanted to leave, but my dad said, "No, you got to stay watch." And I remember him fighting through all of the pain and the insecurity and the fear and all that stuff. Remember the cover? Remember the name on the cover of my book, Facing Your Fears? So now it's interesting. I'm getting somewhere. I'm watching him face these fears. I'm watching him die to his dream when Apollo's like, "Who cares if you get knocked out again? Get in the ring." In other words, die to that dream. It ain't all about winning. You got to get your butt back in that ring as a man, right? And anyway, so all of this is happening. And of course, he goes in the ring, and in Hollywood style, he beats Mr. T, Clubber Lang. And I just remember as a kid, man, I want to be like that. So now I've never, honestly, Manny, the first time I went through this exercise, I was 45. I never even thought through this. All my life, I have always chosen to fight through difficult things instead of run from them. Now, I'm not saying I've always succeeded, but I've chosen to fight through. All my life, I've wanted to be in shape. Like I was so motivated and inspired by Rocky's body.
Absolutely,
right?
Man. Absolutely.
All my life, I have wanted to get in the ring and accomplish something great. All my life, I have Like when he gets done, he's like, Adrian, Adrian, we did it, and he tells people, like in Rocky 4, now fast forwarding a little bit, he tells people, look, we can all change. Like he's telling the Soviet during the Cold War, communist Russia, we can change. Like I want to make a change. Like I can make a difference with my boxing talent. All my life, I've always followed that pattern, but I never realized it until I was 45 and got quiet and thought to myself, who is my hero?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what Eric Beck, our master coach, would say is, whoever your hero is, pay close attention, because that's probably who you are. Because there's something in them, there's a vibration in them that connects with you. Look, it could have been anyone. It could have been Roy Hobbs from The Natural. It could have been Rudy. It could have been, any number of other, it could have been Tom Cruise from Top Gun. I just didn't resonate.
Yeah.
I liked the movie, but I didn't resonate. Rocky resonated. Why? Because that purpose was in me.
That's right.
So when you look, like for my wife, I took my wife through this, bro. Her hero was a lady by the name of Sandy Smith. And so I said, babe, outline what it was about Sandy. Now, my wife didn't know where I was going with this. I said, outline what it was about Sandy that you loved. Here it is. She's gentle and sweet. She was so good at hosting. She was a great listener. When I came into her home, she always had something baked for us, and she would sit down and listen to us, and then would encourage us that we've got this, and she would encourage us in our faith. Now, I just want to pause for a second. Do you know who I just described? Lori Benham, my wife. She's describing Sandy. She didn't even realize she's describing herself.
That's who she was.
That's who we have. Like, really, if you're struggling with who am I? What's my purpose? Look, stop, get alone. And it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
You're laying in your bed as a 10-year-old before money came into the picture, before responsibility and the pain of relationship came into your picture. Now, maybe at 10, you really had some hard time, but go back maybe to 6 or whatever it may be and really start thinking it through.
Dude, you're
going to start discovering things about yourself.
You're doing it exactly what you were doing the first time you started talking to me. You just mentioned the age for me where baseball was the turning point. I started playing ball when I was 10 years old. It was right when my mom passed away. 10 years old, she passed away. And then at the same year, I started playing baseball. But you talking about this is again, I think and I have a lot of hair on my body, if you can't notice, but the rest of my body, like the whole package is starting to stand up on my body because you're talking right into the sweet spot in the wheelhouse, as you say. But I have identified that. In fact, it's just a few years ago, I realized that the same reason you're talking about, you became who you became because you watched Rocky. You know what it was for me? It was when I was younger, I would watch baseball on TBS and WGN because here in Vegas, we only had the Braves to watch on TBS and we had the Cubs to watch on WGN. And I remember, David, and I'll share something else with you in just a second on top of that. I remember watching the games, and when somebody was in the bottom of the ninth and they were down a run and they had 2 guys on, or they were prepped to be the hero and they would hit a walk-off, and then they would trot the bases and the entire stadium would be uproaring and uplifting. I watched that guy circle the bases. I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be the guy that wins the game, that saves the day. That's the hero that everybody's cheering for. Now, it also goes back to some other stuff. My dad was a huge Seagal guy. He was a huge Van Damme guy. We watched Bloodsport and we watched all of Seagal's movies. So it was always like, I'm here to protect, to save, to keep this place in order. And my most recent ones, man, we were just in Florida for the Income Surge event, and we were in the room. My lady was there. I said, let's watch Armageddon. Bruce Willis saves the world because he takes it and he goes and does his duty. And I was like, that's the same feeling that you're talking about right now through this superhero identification process that I understand wholeheartedly because I have worked this process and identified why.
That's why you will never be content. Yeah. That's why a guy like you will never be content with a 9 to 5.
Never.
You'll never be content.
Never
That's
content.
Right.
No way.
Why are you doing this podcast? Most people would be like, always on the grow. What, are you just trying to grow yourself? No, You're trying to help other people grow.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Because you want that. It's a stadium of people.
That's
now.
right. That's right, dude. That's right.
You
That's
were
right.
called into
Yeah.
that.
It's
So that's why you need to build this. You need to keep growing this bad boy, because it's your purpose.
That's right,
It's
man.
what's in you.
That's right. I value you so much, man. You're such an incredible human being. You, your brother, everything you all are putting together, you know, our paths crossing. Um, I'm infinitely indebted to you. You always know you got a brother over here to be a third brother, a browner guy, man, with some darker hair over here.
That's right. I like it.
Help you out. Let us know where we can go find you. I'm sure you got all kinds of great stuff. And then I do want to ask you my last question right here.
Yeah, absolutely. BenhamBrothers.com, BENHAM brothers.com on socials and stuff. Okay. Expert ownership is just expertownership.com is where we're doing on the coaching piece. But yeah, man, it's awesome. Very simple to get a hold of us.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Bottom line, hey, including Life Surge. Make sure you come see them at the Life Surge events.
Yeah, we need to get into Vegas with Life Surge.
Yeah, we sure do, man.
We need to get a stadium out there. Will they let us get into a stadium?
Probably, yeah. Actually, yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
It's pretty even keel out here, man. It's not too far one way or the other. So Vegas is pretty in a good position right now. I think it's great.
I like it.
All right, brother. Hey, last question. What does always on the grow mean to you?
I like that. That's a good question. Always on the grow. I think the first thing that I think of is intentionality. Always on the grow means you are intentional about the core areas of your life: emotional, spiritual, relational, financial, and physical. I would say those 5: emotional, spiritual, relational, financial, and physical. And you're intentional about those. And you've got an anchor activity, even if it's just one, you've got an anchor activity for each of those.
Beautiful.
And yeah, so I think that's intentionality. Always on the grow means you are intentional about growth in the 5 core areas of life.
I always love it when I throw it out there and there's a guy like you that knows how to rap pretty well in life. Got the word behind him. That's a good question. That one made me think a little bit. All right, brother. High five, man. High five, fist pump, brother. I love it. You're the man.
I love it.
I know I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you in about a month and a week in person. And in the meantime, brother, I'm here for you, man.
I love it. God bless you. And to all your listeners, you guys, you've got this. The Lord created you for this moment, and you have purpose. You have destiny. Be filled with hope. Do not listen to the naysayers. Don't even allow the naysayers inside your mind to win that battle. You go feed that good dog, not that evil wolf. And listen to Always on the Grow and podcasts like this. Get into the Word of God. You guys are going to crush it.
I'm gonna set you up for round 2. You're coming back to do another one. We'll talk a whole bunch more about good stuff. Yeah, that's it.
I love it.
I had to make the ass. If y'all didn't notice, folks, I just asked. So I put him on the spot because now he's on camera.
Hey, I love it. I'm in with you.
That's right. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gone over to YouTube, make sure you go over there. Always on the Grow. See David, he's always calling me handsome. He's always calling me handsome devil you and all that cool stuff, having fun. You got to go see his big, happy, smiley face too, because he's got an awesome one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.